Now, looking at the electronics in the Mini Pro, what I counted was 18 of these tubular type of lithium batteries that are very common in the Orient but aren't off-the-shelf items here in the US. Over there they run their flashlights on them and everything else. But they pack so much power, and there's of course questions of safety as there were when they're not done right. So they're not common in the US. What you should know and what they will not tell you is this, that lithium batteries do not like to be stored at 100% charge. Okay? And they do not like to be discharged down about 20% or lower than 20% of their capacity. So ideally, between 20 and 80% is their very happy operation range. And what that means is if you discharge down to below 20%, you should probably go ahead and charge it up, let them cool off when you come in for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and slap them on the charger and bring them up to at least halfway. And if you're storing it, you go out for a ride and you use about half the mileage and it's about half depleted, don't top it off and have it sit there. Go ahead and let it sit at halfway, and before you're ready to go, you know you're going to leave it an hour, pop it on the charger and let it top off and then take right off. So that when the batteries are fully charged, they're not sitting there. Lithium batteries are most unstable when they're above 80% and below 20% charge. Ideally, for the longest term storage life, they like to be at about 45 degrees F and about 40-50% charge level. So if you're going to leave it for a long time, you'd keep it cool and you'd keep it at about 50% charge. Of course, because electronics are in there and they're waiting to talk to somebody, they're draining some energy out of the lithium batteries, so these will deplete themselves just sitting there. Do not let them deplete down real low. You've got to top this baby off regularly. That means, certainly every 30 days. If a lithium battery is not connected to electronics, it can sit for several years and maintain its charge without self-discharging. So these are phenomenal technology, and they're using some really high capacity ones in this Mini Pro. But keep that stuff in mind. I know it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. The upside is you get tremendous power out of a very small battery pack. Do be very careful with the extension tightener over here on the front of the big arm, because this thread is going into plastic, not metal, and it's pushing against metal in the back. So certainly if you just kept tightening this, it would strip the plastic threads, and there's no recovery from that. So just snug, that's it. Now, one of the worst mistakes you can make using the Mini Pro is getting on the wrong side. Really a bad idea. And once you take your little plastic slip covers off that come from the factory, you really can't see clearly which way the front is from an indication on there. So that can be fixed with just a little bit of white electrical tape. There's a little indentation there that's supposed to show you which way is forward. Just pop a little electrical tape in there on both sides, and it's really clear. Plus, look on the pull-up handle on top, I took a little red electrical tape and just stuck it on there with a little bit of an arrow. And that'll give you a visual when you're looking from the top, because of course these little rubber things are exactly the same on both sides of the center. So when you're looking down at it, okay, pretty easy to see which way is front now. So when you first get the Mini Pro, it really pays to go ahead and check all of the Allen wrench tightness. Now these two here, there's actually 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, these little ones, and on the other side 1, 2, 3, 4 are just holding the covers. Those don't have to be extra snug. You can check them as long as they're somewhat tight, that's fine. But the main bolts for holding the wheels, these 4 here, these 4 here, and these 2 uppers and 2 lowers are just holding the fender on. So again, those don't need to be super snug. Just be sure that they're not loose. But as I said, these 4 are important, and you should just check them. If they're at all loose, if they can take, I'd say any more than 1/8 of a turn, pull them out one by one and put thread locker on it, Loctite, and put them back in and give them about a quarter turn past just snug. That's extremely important because that's holding all of the weight of the wheel. So you see what I'm going to do is take this little rubber cap off the back here at the base of the big vertical arm, and there are 2 Allen head screws in there. I am going to pull each one of them out and put a drop of thread locker on there, Loctite on each, and tighten each. When they're down flush, give them about another almost a quarter turn, a little less than a quarter turn to snug them up. Now on the control arm, there are 4 screws behind this peel-off warning label right here by the adjustment knob. These can also become loose. but be very careful. This, I believe they're going into metal, but never use thread locker on screws that are going into plastic. It will melt the plastic. So only on screws, and use very little of it, that are going into metal. I would say check these, especially if you feel a little bit of play when you move the control arm back and forth. On the locking mechanism at the base, these two screws right here set the abject tightness of this locking ring around here. And they were set correctly coming from the factory, but certainly these could loosen up. So as well, check the tightness on these. You should be able to snap it shut. It shouldn't take a lot of extra force, but it should be snug. The battery cell with lithium batteries in it is held on the bottom by 4 Allen key screws, and that is in the 4 corners of the battery pack. I found, let's try this one, that I could turn them about, an 1/8 of a turn, and I'm going to, because these things loosen up on shipment. There we go, right out of the box here. Let's see. Just 1/8 of a turn and snug them up. Now I've heard stories out on the forums that people have lost the hubcap, and I don't think I can come up with anything to really snug that on there, but boy, keep an ear open to hear that you, if you do drop a hubcap, to go get it and snap it back on. Of course, your kit came with a couple of extra of the larger stick-out ones here, one gray and one red, in case those pop out. Now, since the manual and the side of the tire itself have 2 different pressure ratings, how do you figure out how much air to put in? Well, that depends on the weight of the rider. If you've got a heavier rider, you'll need a little bit more air, and I imagine that 40 to 45 pounds is the absolute maximum, and 35 would be sort of the minimum. What you're looking for is a little dimple at the bottom when the rider is standing on it. The tire should contract just a little bit to make the footprint of rubber that's going to hit the road. So the inflation is going to depend on how heavy your rider is, your main rider. So have somebody else look at it while you're standing on it and be sure that there's a little dimple going in, and then that'll be the appropriate pressure. Now, something I like to do when I've got power plugs is to mark them the way the plug goes into the connector. You don't want to fumble around, turning around in a circle every time you put it in. So put it in correctly and take a piece of orange or black, orange or red electrical tape, or you could use nail polish, and just put a marker on both sides. That way, every time you put the plug in, it'll go right in. Now, something I noticed running this in the summer is that with shorts on, of course, your bare leg is up against this rubber material. And I noticed I could have probably got a little bit of chafing there, just rubbing, scraping after many, many miles of use. What I'm going to suggest is just a little bit of talcum powder on the pads and on the inside of your knees if you're going to go on a long, long ride. All right, here's Bob's upgrade tip number 1. This little reflector cap comes out with 1 screw, and just pull it. There's a little clip on the other side. Just gently pull it out. And inside is plenty of room for a light. What kind of light? How about run up to the department store and get, in the automotive section, one of those valve stem lights that go on cars to make them look all fancy. You can get them in red, purple, white, and just put it in there with a dab of hot glue pointing backwards, and anytime you, and then reassemble, anytime you use the device and jiggle this around, that blinky light will come on and make a nice little pulsing caution light on the back of your Segway.